is creepy.
Story 1, The Quiet Floor. I didn't believe in haunted places. I believed in bad lighting, tired brains, and the way an empty building can make your imagination do backflips. That belief lasted exactly one night, the night I worked the quiet floor. I was 24, broke, and stubborn enough to accept any job that promised a consistent paycheck. A local hospital had hired me as overnight security. Nothing glamorous. Mostly checking doors, walking corridors, making sure no one was where they shouldn't be. During training, they handed me a ring of keys and a laminated map. The supervisor, a man named Grant who spoke like every sentence was a chore, tapped one wing on the map. "Fourth floor," he said. "Old wing. Renovation started, then funding got cut. It's locked. You'll do a walkthrough every hour." I stared at the map. The fourth floor wasn't on the main public elevator buttons. It was one of those service access only levels. "What's up there?" I asked. Grant didn't meet my eyes. "Nothing. That's the point." On my first night alone, I found the service elevator and rode up. The doors opened with a reluctant sigh, and the smell hit me immediately: dust, old paint, something sour underneath like damp drywall. The lights were different on that floor. Not the bright hospital fluorescents. These were older, weaker, and spaced too far apart. They made long shadows that didn't feel like they belonged to anything. I followed the corridor like the map told me. My boots echoed too loudly. The further I walked, the more I noticed the quiet wasn't normal quiet. It was pressed. Like the air was holding its breath. About halfway down the hall, my radio crackled. I lifted it, expecting dispatch. Instead, I heard a voice whisper my name. Not my call sign. Not security. My actual name. I froze so hard my shoulders locked. "Probably interference," I muttered out loud, like saying it would make it true. I tried my radio. "Dispatch, you there?" Static. I checked my phone. No service. The hospital walls were thick enough that the signal could die up there. That was normal. The not normal thing was that whisper. I kept walking because the alternative was admitting I was scared by, what? A sound? A glitch? At the far end of the corridor, there was a set of double doors marked with fading tape, "Do not enter." My keys worked. The locks clicked open like they'd been waiting. The doors swung inward, revealing a wide room full of covered equipment. Old beds. Monitors with blank faces. Wheelchairs stacked like skeletons. And in the center of the room was a single chair, uncovered, facing the doorway as if it had been positioned to watch whoever came in. On the seat was my own flashlight. The one I'd had in my hand. I looked down. My hand was empty. My stomach dropped in a way that made my whole body feel hollow. I didn't understand what I was seeing, because there were only two explanations and both were impossible. Either I had set the flashlight down and forgotten, or something had taken it from my hand without me noticing. I stepped forward slowly. The beam from the overhead light flickered, and for a split second the room went dim. In that dimness, I saw movement behind the chair. Just a shift, like someone adjusting their weight. I snapped my head up, heart slamming. Nothing. The chair sat alone. The covered shapes in the room didn't move. I forced myself closer, grabbed my flashlight, and clicked it on. The bright beam cut through the dust. That's when I saw the footprints. Fresh ones. Not dusty outlines. Not old marks. Wet footprints, like someone had walked through water and onto the dusty floor. They started behind the chair, then continued toward me, stopping just a few feet from where I stood. Then they turned. And the footsteps walked back toward the far wall, where there was no door. I followed them, being shaking slightly as my hand began to tremble. The prints ended at a blank stretch of wall. Just brick and paint. I swallowed. Then my radio crackled again. And that same whisper said, very calmly, "Don't stand there." My blood turned cold. I stepped back instinctively. At that exact moment, a metal panel in the ceiling above the wall, an old vent cover, dropped down with a violin. Dust exploded into the air. If I hadn't moved, it would have hit my head. I stood frozen, staring at the vent cover like it was a warning sign that had just learned how to speak. My breathing sounded loud in my ears. Then my flashlight beam caught something else on the wall. Scratched into the paint, hidden beneath years of grime, were words carved deep enough to leave grooves. Not graffiti. Not random marks. A sentence. If you hear your name, don't answer. The hospital announced the next week that the 4th floor would be removed from security rounds, due to safety concerns. Grant avoided my eyes after that. And sometimes, when the night shift gets quiet and my radio crackles with interference, I still hear a whisper that sounds like it knows exactly where I am. Story 2, The Passenger Behind Me. My girlfriend used to tease me for locking my car doors the moment I got inside. "Who are you worried about?" she'd say, laughing. "The parking lot monster." I didn't have a good answer. I just always did it. Until the night I realized my habit might be the only reason I'm alive. I was leaving a 24-hour grocery store around 2:30 a.m. The place was nearly empty, just a tired cashier and a man in a hoodie wandering the aisles like he'd forgotten why he came. The parking lot lights buzzed softly. My car was parked near the far edge, under one of those lights that flicker like they're about to quit. As I approached, I heard a faint metallic click. Like a car door handle. I stopped. I looked around. No one. The lot was open, quiet, too still. I walked faster, got into my car, and locked the doors, like always. I tossed the bags onto the passenger seat and turned the key. Nothing. The engine didn't catch. I tried again. The starter clicked weakly. Dead battery. I sat there, suddenly aware of how exposed I was. Windows all around me. Empty lot. No quick escape. I reached for my phone to call someone. And that's when I heard it. A slow exhale. Not mine. Behind me. From the back seat. I froze mid-motion. My hand hovered over my phone. Every nerve in my body lit up like an alarm. I didn't turn around right away, because my brain kept trying to insist it was impossible. I lived alone. I'd driven there alone. I hadn't given anyone a ride. There shouldn't be anyone back there. The exhale happened again, closer to the right side, like a person leaning forward between the seats. My heart hammered so hard it made my vision pulse. Very slowly, I looked up into the rearview mirror. And I saw eyes. Two eyes, wide open, reflecting the parking lot light. They were inches from the glass. Someone was crouched behind me in my back seat, low enough that I couldn't see their face, only their eyes and the top edge of something dark, like a hood. My stomach flipped. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I did the only thing my body could think to do without getting me killed immediately. I smiled. A small, casual smile, like I hadn't seen anything. And I spoke to the air like I was talking to someone on the phone. Yeah, I'm in the car. Battery's dead. Can you come out? I'm by the far light. I pressed the call button on my phone without even looking at who I was calling. It rang. The eyes in the mirror didn't blink. The person didn't move. The call went to voicemail. I swallowed. My mouth felt like paper. I kept talking anyway. Yeah, bring the jumper cables. Hurry, it's freezing. Behind me, the person shifted slightly, like they were listening. Then the back seat handle moved. They were testing the door. Locked. Another slow exhale, like irritation. Then, very softly, something scraped across the leather, like a finger dragging. I realized then the person wasn't trying to hide anymore. They were letting me know they were there. My phone vibrated. A text. From my girlfriend. Where are you? I typed with shaking fingers without taking my eyes off the mirror. Call me now. Her call came immediately, like she'd sensed something. I answered, put it on speaker. Hey, I said, forcing my voice steady. I'm at the store. Battery's dead. My girlfriend started talking, but her voice barely registered because the person behind me moved again. This time, they leaned forward enough for the mirror to catch a sliver of their face. Pale skin. A grin that didn't belong on a human expression. And something shiny in their hand. Not a knife exactly, something thinner. Like a screwdriver, sharpened. My entire body went cold. I didn't think. I acted. I hit the horn. A long, blaring scream of sound ripped across the empty lot. The eyes in the mirror widened. The person jerked back. I slammed my palm on the horn again, like a frantic heartbeat. The grocery store doors opened. The cashier stepped out, looking annoyed and confused. The man in the hoodie turned his head. The person behind me moved fast, too fast, unlocking the back door from inside and throwing it open. They slipped out into the dark and ran between rows of cars like a shadow cutting loose. The cashier shouted something, but the figure was already gone. Police came, took my statement, searched the lot. They didn't find anyone. But when they checked my car, they found something that made my skin crawl. The child locks on the back doors had been turned on. Meaning even if I'd unlocked the doors, I couldn't have opened them from the inside. Someone had planned this. Someone had been waiting. And if my battery hadn't died, would have driven away. With a stranger in my back seat. Story 3, the same knock. There's a kind of fear that doesn't come from what you see. It comes from repetition. From a pattern that shouldn't exist. When I moved into my apartment, the neighbor across the hall introduced herself on day one. Her name was Nora. Friendly. Quiet voice. She had a gold key necklace and a smile that looked tired. She told me one thing right away. If you ever hear knocking at night, don't answer unless you're expecting it. I laughed politely, thinking she was being dramatic. Nora didn't laugh back. On my third night there, at 3:11 a.m., I heard knocking. 3 knocks. Slow. Evenly spaced. Not frantic. Not help me. Not angry. Just deliberate. I lay in bed, staring at my ceiling. My apartment was small enough that the front door was only a few steps away. I could almost feel the knocking through the floor. 3 knocks again. I checked my phone. No notifications. I stayed still. The knocking stopped. The next night, 3:11 a.m., the same 3 knocks. Same rhythm. Same spacing. Like someone was running a script. This happened for 5 nights in a row. Always at 3:11. Always 3 knocks. By the 6th night, I was furious. Sleep-deprived, annoyed, more angry than scared. I grabbed a baseball bat I kept under my bed, more for comfort than any real plan, and stormed to the door. I looked through the peephole. No one. The hallway was empty, lit by that weak yellow light that makes everything feel aged. I waited, bat in hand. 3:11. 3 knocks. This time, they came from my door. I jumped. I swung the bat up like I was about to fight the door itself. And then I heard something else. Breathing. Right up against the door. Like someone's mouth was inches from the wood. I stood frozen. Then a voice, low and soft, said, "Open up." It wasn't yelling. It wasn't pleading. It sounded like someone calmly requesting a glass of water. My throat tightened. I didn't answer. The voice sighed. "Come on," it said, almost friendly. "I know you're awake." I backed away from the door like it could reach through. The hallway light flickered under the doorframe, as if something moved in front of it. Then Nora's door across the hall opened. I heard her chain slide. Her voice cut through the silence. "Hey," she called sharply. "Get away from his door." A pause. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Walking away. Nora knocked on my door a minute later, normal knocking, not the 3 deliberate taps. I opened it just a crack. Nora's eyes were wide. She looked angry. And scared. "You almost answered," she said. "I didn't," I whispered. Nora nodded. "Good. What is it?" I asked. Nora looked down the hallway like it might still be there. "Something that learns," she said quietly. "It started at my door months ago. Same time. Same knock. I ignored it for weeks. Then one night." She swallowed. "One night it started knocking like my sister. Same rhythm my sister uses. Same pause between taps." My skin prickled. "That's not possible," I said. Nora's face didn't change. "It is when it's listening," she said. "And it wants you to make the mistake." I didn't sleep that night. And for a while, the knocking stopped. I thought maybe Nora scared it off. Then, 2 weeks later, at 3:11 a.m., I heard 3 knocks again. But they weren't on my door. They were on Nora's. And this time, the voice that spoke was hers. In perfect imitation. "I forgot my keys," it said softly. "Nora, open the door." I stood in my hallway, frozen, listening. Nora didn't answer. The voice tried again, warmer. "Nora, it's me." Then, with a hint of irritation, it said, "I'm standing right here." And that was when Nora whispered from inside her apartment, voice trembling but firm. "I am too." Silence. Then the sound of something dragging slowly down the hallway. Like nails on paint. And after that night, Nora moved out without telling anyone. Her apartment stayed empty. But sometimes, at 3:11 a.m., I still hear 3 knocks. Not on my door. Not on any door. Just knocking inside the walls, like something pacing, waiting for the right moment to try again. Story 4, The Offline Camera. I bought a cheap indoor security camera after a string of car break-ins in my neighborhood. Nothing fancy. Just a little device that connected to Wi-Fi and sent motion alerts to my phone. It made me feel safer. That feeling lasted until I realized someone else might have been watching too. At first, the camera worked like normal. I'd get alerts when I came home, when my cat jumped on the couch, when sunlight shifted and triggered the sensor. Then one morning, I checked the footage and noticed something weird. At exactly 2:03 a.m., the camera went offline. Not for long. Just 3 minutes. Then it came back on. I thought it was Wi-Fi issues. My router was old. Maybe it glitched. But the next night, at 2:03 a.m., it happened again. Offline for 3 minutes. Back on. Same exact time. Same exact duration. That's not Wi-Fi. That's a schedule. I changed my Wi-Fi password. Updated the camera firmware. Reset everything. The next night, 2:03 a.m., the camera went offline. Again. I sat up in bed, phone in hand, staring at the live feed. The screen turned gray, device offline. My stomach tightened. I got out of bed and walked into the living room, moving quietly, heart pounding like I was sneaking up on my own fear. The camera was mounted high on the shelf, facing the room. Its little blue light was off. I stood beneath it and looked around. My apartment was silent. Then, behind me, my front door handle moved. Very slightly. Like someone gently testing it. I froze. I held my breath so hard my chest hurt. The handle moved again. Then stopped. My phone buzzed. The camera came back online. The live feed returned. And in the feed, I saw myself standing in the living room staring at the door. But behind me, in the corner of the frame, near my hallway, there was a shape. Tall. Still. Too dark to make out details. Just, present. I spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I looked back at the feed. The shape was still there. Not moving. Like it was only visible through the camera. My skin went cold. I reached up, grabbed the camera, and ripped it off the shelf so hard it nearly fell out of my hand. The feed cut. I stood there shaking, holding the device like it was a live insect. My phone buzzed again. A new alert. Motion detected. That didn't make sense. The camera was in my hand. Then I realized something that made my stomach flip into panic. The motion alert wasn't from the living room camera. It was from a camera I didn't own. A second device. On my account. Named, Hallway. I never installed a hallway camera. I clicked it with trembling fingers. A live feed opened. It showed my apartment hallway. My front door. And me, standing inside my apartment holding my living room camera like a weapon. But the angle was wrong. It was coming from inside the hallway wall, slightly above door height. Like someone had placed a camera inside the structure. Then, on that feed, something moved. Not in my apartment. Outside my door. A face leaned close to the peephole area, so close the lens distorted it. And the face smiled. Then my hallway feed went offline. Exactly 3 minutes. Story 5, The Wrong Return Address. I used to buy random stuff online all the time, cheap electronics, used books, whatever popped up late at night when my brain was bored and my self-control was asleep. I never thought a package could scare me. Until I got one that was meant for me, but didn't come from anywhere that made sense. It showed up on a Tuesday afternoon. Brown box. No branding. Just my name and address typed neatly. The return address was blank. That was the first red flag. Inside was a smaller box, wrapped in plain black tape. No receipt. No invoice. Nothing. My hands hesitated over the tape. I told myself it was probably something I ordered and forgot, because I do that sometimes. I cut it open. Inside was a flip phone. Old-fashioned. The kind you'd see in early 2000s movies. It was charged. As soon as I lifted it, it vibrated. One incoming call. No caller ID. I stared at it like it was a snake. It rang until it stopped. Then it rang again. I didn't answer. I set the phone down on my kitchen counter and backed away like distance could protect me. It rang a third time. Then stopped. A text message appeared on the screen. Look outside. My heart picked up speed immediately. I walked to my window, curtain barely opened, and looked out at the street. Nothing unusual. Cars parked. A neighbor's porch light. Normal world. The flip phone buzzed again. Another text. Wrong window. My blood went cold in a slow, sinking way. I turned my head toward the other side of my apartment, toward the bedroom window that faced the alley. I didn't want to look. But fear has gravity. It pulls you. I walked slowly, every step louder than it should have been. I peeked through the blinds. And there, in the alley behind my building, was a person standing perfectly still, looking up. Not at the building. At my window. They weren't waving. Not moving. Just staring. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. The flip phone buzzed again. Don't turn on the light. And I realized, with a sick clarity, that whoever was out there wasn't guessing. They were watching my movements in real time. Which meant the phone wasn't the only thing they'd sent. It was a tool. A way to tell me they were already in control. I stepped back from the window as quietly as I could, moving in the dark like I suddenly understood prey instincts. My own phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out and called 911 with trembling fingers. As it rang, the flip phone buzzed again. Too slow. I heard something at my front door. A soft scrape. Like tape being peeled. The 911 operator answered. I whispered my address, barely able to breathe. The operator asked what was happening. I didn't even know how to explain it. Then I heard the sound that made every hair on my body rise. 3 knocks. Slow. Evenly spaced. Right on my front door. And a voice on the other side, calm, familiar, said. Hey. It's me. Open up. It sounded like my brother. But my brother lives 3 states away.